that spirit of this like communal collective, we take care of each other, we help each other out, was just so ingrained into our everyday life, and we didn't know how rare that was until we left. And now all of a sudden you see the clarity around, this is such a beautiful normality that's happening there. This would be great to make a film about.
I got to see the movie, and the story is just so sweet. What was it that led you guys to make this movie?
We get people saying like, that was the most wholesome thing I think I've watched in a long time. And it is like, there is a sweetness to it, and that was, I think, part of our intent from the beginning, was just trying to, it felt like the world, when we were making it and originally starting out, the world felt just like had just a heaviness to it. And a lot of the movies and stories that we felt that were out there were either negative or divisive or um, just intense and dark. And it felt like where we grew up was in the upper Midwest, and getting a chance to show the lovely, hospitable people that live up there, and being represented through a farmer's story, and then the wider community that surrounds him, was, it felt like a timely thing that the world needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And your grandfather was a dairy farmer? Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. Our grandfather was a dairy farmer, a pretty small dairy farmer too, not, pretty similar to Buck in the story. So yeah, and we grew up around, our cousins were involved in FFA and had a bunch of livestock. And so we were very much accustomed to both the beautiful nature of farming and also the harsh realities for sure. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask like how much experience did you guys have prior to this movie being on a field, milking cows, farming farming life?
Yeah, we didn't. We had a horse as a kid. That was like our closest thing to. We didn't have cattle per se, and our grandfather, the farm, the dairy part of it was shut down by the time we came around, and so it was just crops um and that sort of thing. So we didn't, but like when you grew up in those areas, you are just around a little bit more of that stuff. Like a lot of our friends were involved in, 4-H, or like David was saying, our cousins were FFA, and so you kind of just, I think, growing up in rural areas, you are, even if you don't, we just had our horse, but yeah, so we didn't necessarily spend any time milking cows as kids or anything, but just visited it a lot, was around it a decent amount. So it felt like a world that we were really comfortable in.
So since you had some experience, just like you said, growing up kind of around it, um, were there any, even with that, were there any surprises when you guys started filming of like, oh, we're filming a movie and a cow is mooing the background, or like, okay, we have to wait?
yeah, I think the animals were, yeah, even though we were very like Andrew was saying, familiar and comfortable around them, like uh yeah, until you're like having them on set every day, moving around you, and then like not only just us, right? You bring Craig T. Nelson into a herd of cattle, right? It just changes it just becomes, even Craig was like, oh man, these things are huge, like moving around him as he's trying to do his thing. So yeah, there were a lot of different complications that came up. Honestly, not as many as there surely could have been. But even like in the film, how like the tail of the cow is like, you'll notice it like whip our talent a few times. Like that was a shock to them too. So that stuff's all like very natural and fun. That's why we left it in there, because it added such a fun element of like surprise that they felt too. But I think the most challenging part was the calf birth. We always reference that, like, because that's a live calf birth. That's totally real. There's no, no visual effects there. That's like a live birth. So, yeah, that was a lot. That ended up being a lot more challenging than we anticipated for sure.
Yeah. How did you, I mean, one, even trying to plan filming a birth is with a full movie set is hard enough. How did you prepare the actors to go into this farm? Was there anything where it's like, okay, hands on, this is how you milk a cow to make it look natural. This is authentic.
Yeah. No, It was awesome. So one of the cool things, not a lot of people know about Craig T. Nelson, but he lived off grid himself for 7 years, which I don't know anybody in my life who's lived off grid for 7 years. Like that is an intense. So I mean, that dude is savvy. Like he can build, he built his own house. He understands. He's just very physical, like in his body, and understands just how the world works in a tangible way that a lot of people don't.
Mhm.
So yeah, he was really comfortable with a lot of that. Madison, our lead actor, she grew up in South Dakota, so was a little familiar with the farm stuff. But when we got them, I think this is another thing about the challenge of indie filmmaking is, we don't get everybody to like come there for this summer camp experience and you just get to like, let's all like harmoniously live on these farms. It's they fly in, you got 48 hours of rehearsals. So we would one of the rehearsal process was we got them to speak with farmers as much as we could and have farmers just give them tutorials and there was two farmers in particular who were very hands-on with us with their cows that would say, hey, I would do it this way, here's what I would do, and those farmers help just bring the extra level of authenticity to it. So
Wow. I mean, well, speaking of authenticity, this movie is based on true events, which is insane when you watch it. The just the love and the community coming together. Like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm not going to say too much about it, but it's beautiful. Did you guys get to meet any of the people that this story was inspired by?
yeah, so it was it's funny, a lot of people when they say like inspired by true events, they go, "What farmer bet on the Packers?" And we're like, "Well, that's not the part that's inspired. That's not the inspiration for the film. The inspiration for the film, the true events was, even from our own family experience, the loss of small farms in America. Like that is something that we had front row seats to, and just even our seeing our uncles who were no longer farming, and I think a lot of farmers like that story is not uncommon. Like that's a very common story that's happening. And so I think, that was the biggest true events that were inspiring this film is looking at just how difficult it is and how, all these generations of farmers are, that is really just shrinking and shrinking and conglomerating into, fewer and fewer hands. So that was one of the main true events. And the other, you mentioned it a little bit, the beauty of the community. We growing up, our whole community was always pitching in to help with different things when other people were struggling. Like if somebody had cancer, they would do a spaghetti feed. If the kids in high school wanted to go downstate on they had some special event that they needed the bus driver, it's like the people would pitch in cash and help get them down there. And that spirit of this like communal, collective, we take care of each other, we help each other out was just so ingrained into our everyday life. And we didn't know how rare that was until we left. And now all of a sudden you see the clarity around this is such a beautiful cultural normality that's happening there. This would be great to make a film about. So
Yeah. And I think you guys captured it beautifully, like I said. Um, was there one thing or aspect that was really heavy on your heart to make sure to capture in this film and in this movie?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think for me it was to showcase, this part of the world doesn't get a lot of attention, right? And if it does, it's like uh if it gets shown in cinema, it's often like kind of a hokey, or a Disney version of the actual life there. And just for us growing up there, like we just like it's never been told in such a true or like a true and authentic way. So I think for us it was like how can we show the world yeah, just like a different slice of life where people yeah, take care of animals and provide food and take care of their neighbor in just such a unique way, and show it like yeah, just really authentically, like let's just tell a story that yeah, that feels really real to how life actually is there.
hmm.
So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I think for me too, like similar. I just have this desire. The farmers that I've met in the world, there are some of like the most salt of the earth people I know. And I think for me, I wanted the film to inspire a lot of young farmers who were thinking, I think in this day and age, it's easy to like think the grass is greener somewhere else, right? Like with social media, it's like you're looking at all the amazing vacations everybody else is doing. You're looking at all the way that people are spending their time and thinking it's better. But the what I was hoping with the film is just to inspire a sense of presence for people, like for young farmers or even other folks who grew up in rural areas, and to grow an appreciation and give them like an outsider's view in on their world and say, look how beautiful this actually is. Like you don't need to really look any further. What you have is what you need, and that's just to kind of re-inspire the beauty and the vocational purpose to what they're doing. So,
Amazing. Yeah. And you guys were talking about, really highlighting the farmers and all that they do and all that they've gone through. And you've collaborated with Culver's,
mhm.
and they started a Thank You Farmers project. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And because as an independent film you need support. Like you just can't scale in a way that, a Hollywood movie can without you need some sort of brand support. And so for us it was like Green Bay Packers, and then Culver's was one of the first brands we thought of because they had this Thank You Farmers project. I think that was started in 2013, where, they're just because they're a food, they're a restaurant. They understood that a lot of people don't know how this food got here, and so they have a Thank You Farmers project, which is they support agricultural education, largely goes towards FFA, which is kind of this legacy Future Farmers of America, boots on the ground organization that trains young people in farming. So yeah, for us, it was like a pretty obvious connection. And then when we got it to them to in front of Culver's, they didn't want to change a thing in the movie, which surprised us, honestly. We were expecting to get like a list of, yeah, we'll partner with you guys, but you got to change this, but they just said they all had tears in their eyes and they said, how can we help get this out to the world? Like this so much stands for what we get behind and how we exist as a brand. So yeah, that meant to the world to us. And
if you enjoy videos that follow your values like ours and you want to help us continue, go to movieguide.org/donate, because we're actually a nonprofit. You may not know that, but we're working in Hollywood every day to help families have more choices that follows their values. And also subscribe right now.